What's up, guys? So today marks the day where I officially begin prep for marathon number 2. Now, a lot of people ask when you tell them that you're doing something super hard that's pushing your physical limits and testing your endurance in that way, why do that? Why pay a couple $100 to go run 26.2 miles? And my answer to that question is this concept of proactive resiliency. And this first came up when I interviewed one of my old college buddies, Ben Christensen, who ran, I think it was 250 miles across the Sahara Desert over 6 days. And he told me that to prepare for adverse circumstances in your life, you should go out and intentionally do hard things when it's not required of you. And that is fundamentally the concept that I'm trying to ingrain in myself when I sign up for marathons or when I sign myself up to do incredibly hard things like that, because I need to prepare for the what ifs. You know, what if something goes down in my life where I need to be physically prepared to handle it? What if something goes down where it's not a physical challenge, but it's a mental challenge? I'm being pushed to my mental capacities or my emotional capacities. The concepts that you ingrain within yourself by training for something like a marathon, by pushing yourself day in, day out over a series of months, is absolutely invaluable. You can't teach that otherwise unless you go through those hard experiences in real time, in the real world. And so by training for something like a marathon, you are getting yourself ready. You know, you're not expecting the worst, but you're preparing for it just in case. There's a famous quote from a philosopher, an ancient Chinese philosopher named Zhuangzi, and the quote is simple. It just says, life is capricious, which means unpredictable. It means that life's gonna throw you curveballs. It means that you can never really pin down or predict the future, and things are going to go wrong in your life that you would never expect. You know, you might find yourself in a situation that seemed unforeseeable many years ago. For example, I know many of you might already know my story, but in January 2023, I had a collapse of my left lung, a spontaneous pneumothorax, which meant that I ended up in the hospital for a series of weeks. I ended up having to make the difficult decision to go through with surgery on my left lung to repair where air was leaking out into my chest cavity and causing intense pain. I mean, like feeling like I was getting stabbed in the chest every hour of the day. And after going through that experience, I was reflecting on it, and it really wasn't as bad as it might sound. And I think the reason for that was because of all the work that I had done in advance to prepare for some shit like that happening. It wasn't like I was, completely numbing myself or being emotionless about it. It was hard. In the moment, it was hard. I was going through that. My family was there. My girlfriend was there. Like, I was struggling to maintain a positive outlook. But it would have been 10 times worse if I hadn't done the proactive resiliency, if I hadn't done the work up front by training for a marathon, by reading books on personal development and emotional regulation and emotional intelligence, and understanding how to handle difficult scenarios like that where there's pressures from different sides, and one person's telling you one thing, the doctor's telling you one thing, and then your family members are telling you another thing. And that's a difficult scenario to be in. But if I hadn't been doing the work up front, it would have been 10 times worse. And in hindsight, it ended up being pretty much okay. I was able to extract a lot of lessons from it, and I was able to move on with my life pretty much in stride, despite that objectively looking like a really, really profoundly negative scenario to be in. So that's what it's all about, guys. It's about building up the resiliency before you find yourself in those situations, doing it proactively so you don't get blindsided by some shit in your life that catches you off guard, and next thing you know, you're in this negative spiral, this downward spiral. Because it's true, in life, things can spiral, right? Like, one negative thing can lead to another negative thing. You lose your job and you start acting out at home, and you start treating your partner with disrespect. You lose control of your emotions. Next thing you know, your partner is leaving you. Next thing you know, you're getting kicked out of the house, and so on and so forth. So these things can happen in life, and if you can't handle the first negative circumstance with poise, with grace, smoothly, and just to take it in stride, it can easily compound into a much worse experience. Like, let's say, for example, taking the lung surgery thing in my own life. Like, if I wasn't emotionally regulated and I hadn't been doing all this work up front to, study how to handle adverse circumstance, then that could have easily spiraled into depression. Like I'm an active person. I was laid up for about 8 weeks. I could barely, all I could do was walk outside. That was my exercise regimen, was walking outside. And coming from playing soccer and working out my entire life, like that was a hit on my mental health. It was hard for me to just sit at home and stretch and like try and find hobbies to occupy my time with. But if I had let that get to me, if I had let those 8 weeks of just sitting at home affect my mental health permanently, that could have led to a depressive state. You know, I could have dropped into a low vibration state for many months after that. And then even breaking out of that would have been more difficult than just going through with lung surgery itself. So it's about preventing that kind of negative snowball effect from happening in your life by doing the hard things up front. Do some hard shit in advance. Sign yourself up for a marathon. Sign yourself up for a half marathon. It doesn't matter, as long as it's pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and you're dealing with that tug of war in your own mind about whether you should do this, whether you shouldn't do it. It's too hard. It's too, why are we doing this? Why did we sign up for this in the first place? As long as you're overcoming that, as long as you're dealing with those thought patterns and you're addressing them and you're able to continue to forge on your mission, whether that's a marathon, a half marathon, an endurance event that you're signing up for, whether it's writing a book or anything. It could be any challenge. I'm not saying just limit yourself to hard physical challenges, but for me, that is the one that's the most applicable. It's the one that gives you the most resiliency because it's drawn out over a period of months, and then it culminates in this grand event of actually following through on the race and following through on the marathon. And it's unmatched. I mean, the benefits are, you can't count them. They'll affect your life in thousands of different ways. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. We'll see how this journey goes. I think it's going to be a beautiful journey. It's going to be a sweet one. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be many, many challenges along the way, but I think on the end we'll come out stronger. We'll come out more prepared to handle whatever life throws at us.